I'm assuming somebody's going to talk at some point in time. I'm waiting just like you. Go ahead.
Coach, have you gotten over that spring game?
Have I got no? See, you poke it. As soon as I sit down, you poke the bear. There we go. No, I'm not over the spring game. But no, like at the end of the day, I think, it was a good opportunity, for me and CJ to have an opportunity to, sit in as head coaches. And so I'm thankful for Coach Sweeney for that. But like at the end of the day, man, we got to go out and compete, I know that there were some calls that could have been questionable, but, we have to make sure that we do things that don't allow the game to be close. And there's going to be real, opportunities as we move forward during the season where, hey, refs going to make calls that we're not going to like. But at the end of the day, we got to go out and be dominant. Don't put ourselves in those situations so we don't put it in the refs' hands.
Yes, we heard a lot of stuff in the spring just about Peter, players and coaches.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you remember anything from spring, particular play?
Yeah.
Anything about him?
Yeah.
That kind of leads to that type of talk. Do you remember any specific?
I mean, thing for me about Peter Woods is his humbleness. He's such a great kid. And then at the end of the day, he's just been blessed with God-given talent. And so God has given him a lot of abilities that other people just don't have. He's given them strength, speed, quickness that other people don't have. And so when you combine that with him as a person and who he is, it just makes it amazing. He's going to be a natural leader for us. Obviously, there's areas of his game that he need to work on, but he's definitely going to be a really good football player for us and a great leader for us. So just truly excited about that. But at the end of the day, man, no matter how great we are, man, there's always, room for improvement. And so, but, is he going to be really good? Yes, he is. And so are the other guys. Vic Burley, Stephon Green, they're just as talented. And so I've been truly blessed to have an opportunity to coach them. For Peter, man, just, hey, when you got a guy that's, 6'3", 310 pounds of muscle, hey, you can go and make plays whenever you feel like in high school. And if you watch his huddle tape, he just runs through people. But at the end of the day, we have some other dudes on the field that's around him now. And so it's kind of crazy. It's like, hey, you're trying to tell a guy, hey, you don't have to make every play in every play in the defense. And so when you're telling a guy that means you got a really good football player that can go make plays. And so, but for the most part, man, it's just understanding our defensive scheme and just learning our defense. But he comes out every day. He's humble, eager to learn, always looking to improve. And so that's what's going to make him great.
Is there any hesitation about moving?
I cross-train all of our players to be able to play in and out. And so he'll be cross-trained just like everybody else. And so, like right now, man, all my players are going to be cross-trained to be able to play across the board, which makes it really exciting for me to be able to do that.
How invaluable is it when you have a freshman like Peter Woods that have the veterans that you have coming back like Tyler and Ruke and Trey, just to be able to rotate those guys and for them to learn?
I think it's just great, man. When you have that kind of depth, man, you have an opportunity to win a lot of football games and be dominant. I would say like Trey Williams, Peyton Page, and DeMonte Capehart, those guys have really made a huge step this offseason, just improving. I've just been challenging them on and off the field, and they've stepped up to the challenge. And so those depth guys, are the guys that, I'm looking that I've seen this spring that are really tremendous improved, that I know I got to get really, really better. Now, Ruke and Tyler, they've had a lot of playing experience, and they got to be the best versions of themselves. They got to come out and be dominant. And you got to show up again this year and prove that, hey, you're one of the best 2D linemen, in the country. And so they got to show up every week, be consistent throughout the season, and we'll go from there.
Where has Capehart improved, and what have you seen him do to make that?
DeMonte has just done a really good job of taking care of his body, just staying healthy, working on his flexibility. He's really been hitting it hard in the weight room this offseason, taking some time in his off time, man, to just be the best version of himself. I'll just challenge him to do that, man. But, mentally and physically, he's in one of the best spots he's ever been.
Talking about being the best version of yourself, you shared back in March that you broke up with little Debbie. You kind of shared your health journey.
Yeah.
How has that changed the way you coach or your coaching experience when you've gotten some life changes?
I think for me, it's just, trying to be the living example for my players. I know that I'm not going to be the 19-year-old version of myself, but at the end of the day, I can be the best 43-year-old man that I can possibly be. I know the guys are looking at that, every day. So, I care about them. I spend a lot of time with them. And so in order to provide that leadership, man, I got to be the example for myself. And, that comes with just being vulnerable, being able to express, to everybody outside of being in the NFL and outside of being a coach at Clemson, man, I'm human. And so I go through, human trials and tribulations just like everybody else. And so, like at the end of the day, man, I've struggled with, depression in the past. I've struggled with, food addictions. And so, man, I had to overcome that. And so I think there's a lot of inspiration and motivation for people who haven't a listening ear to want to hear to help them get through some things.
We were talking to Wes, talking about leaders on the defense. You know what I'm Ruke is one of those guys. As a person, as a leader.
Right. Yeah, Ruke, man, has done a tremendous job. He's tough. He's, fast. He's physical. Eager to learn. He's quiet. And, he's going to have a really great season this year. And so Ruke has always been kind of more of the, vocal leaders in our room. Tyler Moore is more of a leader by example. But I've challenged those guys to be better leaders in our room, to take the bull by the horns in our room and challenge everybody to be the best version of themselves. And they've shown that they can lead vocally and by example.
One more on Peter. You guys lost to grade 11, gaining potentially another grade 11. What could 11 mean for Clemson DTs?
Man, hey, 11 just need to show up, and just like every other number that needs to show up and just be great. Peter Woods is going to be awesome. But at the end of the day, man, he's got to show up week to week and just prove himself, just like everybody else on the team. He's got to show up at camp, man, and show that he can do it. And so he hasn't played it down yet. But I can tell you this, man, he definitely has the tools to be very dominant. He has tools that I haven't seen in a guy that's just turned 18 years old and ever. So, he's very, much advanced and ahead of a lot of his game.
Is there things that he's done? I was gonna say, is there things that he's done in practice in the spring, or that you've seen from him that you're like, okay, that's a little different than your typical 18-year-old, 19-year-old coming in here?
Absolutely. Just watching them in our technique and fundamentals and our individual drills, you can see that the explosion, the toughness, the physicality, the twitchiness. I mean, he has it all. And so right now, man, it's just for me to just kind of continue to help develop that, and so that he continues to get better. But you see it, going against the offensive line, our starting offensive line. He had an opportunity to get a lot of reps because we had some injuries, across the front. And so, man, he got better. And so I'm just truly thankful that he was able to get the reps that he was able to get.
From your knowledge, was it just his favorite number, or was he kind of aware of the legacy of 11 plus?
I'm not sure as to why he chose 11. Obviously Bryan Bresee, he was a great defensive lineman for us as well, wore the number. So I don't know if he chose that number just, to follow in his footsteps, or that's kind of been his favorite number since he was a kid.
Do you remember a moment in like practice or weight room or something where he did something and like some of the older, Tyler or Ruke are like, okay, was there sort of a standout moment early on?
I mean, you hear guys whispering and talking about Peter. They see that he's different, and they understand that, the tools and tangibles that he has coming in here, that it took them a couple years to kind of develop. And so he's more developed, than your average, 17, 18-year-old that comes into college football. And those type of players are very rare. And I think that's why there's a lot of talk around his name, because, the Peter Woods of the world, that come in and being the person that he is, are very rare, man. But like at the end of the day, what I love about Peter, he's just a humble kid that's willing to work. He come in, man, just you love his spirit, you love his leadership, and he's going to do an awesome job just as an ambassador for this team on and off the field.
What's your evaluation of the pass pressure from the interior last season? I guess also as a whole.
I just think, man, there's always room for improvement. We just got to be able to win with the front four, and not always try to, generate pressure on the quarterback with pressure. And we've done a good job, but we can always be better. If we want to obviously have an opportunity to, to go on a run and to win, game by game, man, our guys got to be able to show up and just win their one-on-ones. And those guys have been working really, really hard this offseason, as a group to get that done.
When you look back on the process that you wanted to try this point in the offseason, is there anything this group has done to surprise you?
I just think they've done a better job of just studying tape and just spending more time together and just bonding as a unit. Some of the great defensive lines that I've been a part of and that I've coached, in the NFL, and then obviously I'm just going into my third year in college football. Man, those guys you're kind of united and bonded off the field. And so I think they've done a good job of spending a lot of time with each other, getting to know each other, because it's different when you step on the field. It's not just your teammate, it's your brother.
Coach, everyone
everyone speaks about your motivational ability and your character. Can you share with us a little bit about the origins of that, those pieces that made you who you are?
I just think it comes from being raised in a home by my grandfather, Bishop James Holland. Obviously passed away about 12 years ago, and so I've learned my leadership. I kind of had that example in the home, as a young man, and so I'm truly appreciative of that. To my mom as well, who lost her fight at the age of 50 from breast cancer about 10 years ago, Iris Wilcox, and to my grandmother. And so those three people have taught me how to lead and taught me how to be a servant leadership, and just, really always have prayed that, I remain humble and that God give me favor. And so, like, at the end of the day, man, it's really about how many lives that I can affect and that I can change. Because, everybody can't coach forever and you can't play the game forever. And so, but at the end of the day, man, my goal is just try to get into heaven, And God's not going to care that I was a defensive run game coordinator or that I was a defensive tackle coach. That's not going to just get me there. And so, man, I just want to make sure that I'm kind and humble to people, that I treat people right, and then I lead in the right way.
Now, the offseason is obviously an area where players can improve. What about you as a coach? What do you do personally to improve as a coach?
I'm always, every single offseason, I'm always trying to develop. And regardless of what people think I know, or regardless how well my players play, there's always room for improvement. And so for me, that comes to taking care of my body. That comes with, going to coaching seminars, learning things from high school coaches, college coaches, pro coaches. And so, man, I challenge myself every single year to meet with coaches, to get coaches on a Zoom, and just maybe look at my individual drills. Maybe the verbiage that I'm using it can be changed, or maybe there's some keywords I need to use to help my players get better. And so I continue to keep that mindset and never become comfortable and think that I've arrived as a coach, or to think that I got all the answers, because I don't. And I think that's how I can continue to stay a good coach, is by continuing to develop myself every offseason, both physically and mentally.
You look good, too.
Oh, thank you.
You tweeted earlier this spring, or maybe a summer, I forget what it was,
Yeah.
you broke up with Little Debbie.
Yeah.
And were you surprised at all by, there was tons of interaction
Yeah.
on that, and people sharing their own stories?
Absolutely. I'm not surprised. I think a lot of times, people are really excited to see my vulnerability and be able to talk about real life problems that we all are going through. And like I said, people look at where I'm at now. They see, the Super Bowls, they see the NFL coach, they see the college coach, but at the end of the day, man, I'm just human. And so I struggle with a lot of things, and there are a lot of people that are struggling with a lot of, things that I've struggled with. And so I've been allowing myself to be vulnerable and share, the experience with people so they can see my authenticity and just be able to help them overcome a lot of things, because we're all fighting and battling something in our minds, even though we don't want to sometimes admit to that, but we all struggle with different things. And so it's good for me to see people that are excited for me, that are motivated, by my weight loss journey. And it gives me a sense of accountability to know that, hey, I got thousands of people that I put out that I'm trying to lose weight. And so, man, it helps keep me accountable. But I love it. I'm excited, and I love the energy, love the positive energy.
I'm sure that vulnerability goes a long way with your players.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, what's allowed me to be very effective as a coach with my players is sharing my experience with them, not the things that I've done or that I've accomplished and, who I coach in the NFL, but those moments where I wasn't in a good place and things that I have overcome. And so that allows them to break down those barriers where they're willing to communicate with me just about life. And so with that being said, I'm able to coach my players hard because they know I care about them as men, and they know what's underneath that. When we're in this building, it's about football. When we're outside this building, man, it's about life. How your family's doing, how your grades, how's your mom and your dad, what's on your plans for the summer. And so, it's not always just football, and that's not what it's about. And so you got to be able to connect with your players on a personal level, and be able to do that. You have to be vulnerable, and you have to tell them the truth about some things that you've been through.
Was there a person in your life, a coach, that showed you that it was okay to be vulnerable? Because it hasn't always, I have witnessed, it hasn't always been that way for men.
Yeah, so like at the end of the day, no, I think I've learned this from, my grandfather, who was a pastor, and my grandmother. And so, it wasn't from a coach, but I've had a lot of great coaches, Mark Stroud, Kevin Hill, Donnie Arrington, who are my high school coaches. I think they've done a really good job, man, just in installing in me a great foundation of what it means to be a man, to be a coach, man, to love people, what it means to be a Christian, and that life is not always going to be perfect. And so, in times when I go through hard times, man, I remember those lessons that I learned from my high school coaches, that I learned from my grandparents and my mom.
Thanks for sharing.
Yes.
For Wes, just heading into his second year, have you seen any particular change in him? Just how has he grown as a coach after his first year?
Man, I think Wes is going to do a tremendous job. I think, like, at the end of the day, man, it's my job to make sure he becomes the best version of himself and to help him. And that's part of servant leadership, is not just providing for your players, but also providing for the staff and the administrators and the support staff that's in this building. I think Wes is going to do a really good job. It'll be his second year going into the defense. Obviously, sometimes in your first year you can experience some attrition here and there, but he's going to be tremendously better than he was last year. Just kind of understand his players, as well, and what they're really good at. I think he's going to put guys in positions to make more plays than what they made last year. So I know we're going to be better. And I think the players, trust him more as well, just as a coordinator. And I've seen that in our players, and just, they enjoy being around him. We enjoy being around him as a staff. The one thing I love about Wes is that he really, takes into account the opinions of other people. You don't always have defensive coordinators like that. But at the end of the day, he runs a show. But it's our job, man, to give him, different ideas and different, plans and things that we can use to attack our opponents.